Good afternoon. Please, can you take your seat si vous voulez bien vous asseoir? So, for the next 20-25 minutes, I will have the privilege to interview or to have a conversation with what we can call a powerful couple. I will start by a lady who, in fact, I will ask her first to introduce herself because it's so difficult to define who is Isabel dos Santos. So how would you define yourself, Isabel?
Well, thank you, Richard. First, I wanted to thank President Bongo for organizing this amazing event. Ali Bongo has done an amazing job in Gabon. It's great to host so many people that come from all over the world to discover this country and most of all discover Africa and its opportunities. So to define myself, I think the first thing is I'm Isabel. And definitely I'm somebody who is an entrepreneur. And I believe that you have to take initiative in your own hands and you have to find your own solutions.
But you are also an engineer. At least this is probably the only point we have in common.
True.
And you are a doer. You are an executive. You are also a social advocate, a mother. What does it feel like to now be known as the first African woman billionaire?
Well, being a woman and going into the business sphere or the investment sphere is a big challenge. Many women from wherever continent they're from, they know what I'm talking about. Not all doors are open to you. You don't often find the same treatment and you kind of have to prove yourself a little. But then again, when you come from Africa, then there's like double jeopardy. You're a woman and you're African. And on top of it, if you're young, then you have no credibility. So it is difficult. But I think that there is a new tendency in the world. If we look around all economies, we have a lot of young people starting up businesses, having initiative, creating employment. And so I think basically it's African women are just there. We have arrived. We're here.
But with this cliché of being the first African woman billionaire, what does that mean for you in terms of responsibility?
As Africans, we have definitely a responsibility to transform potential, because everybody says, well, potentially we are a rich continent. Potentially we could do this. So we definitely have a responsibility to transform potential into opportunity and into concrete facts. So that's the main responsibility. And then by creating jobs, making sure people have access to education, so educating our kids as mothers, making sure they go to school, then on that they're good people with the right values. It's also important to have good values and ethics in business, and that's really our responsibility.
This morning we spoke a lot about youth, and as you know, I think especially the African youth, they always look for a role model. It's important to be inspired. Who are your role models?
Well, we have quite a few role models in football, so.
Can you?
Well, I think I'm going to probably say something.
And who are for you, the Africa's today role model?
Well, my role model would be someone like my grandmother, who was an African woman that would sell in the market. She would wake up in the morning extremely early, and she would make sure that her children are fed and sent to school, and then she would go to the market and sell fruit, vegetables, to be able to pay for her home. And these women, and we have thousands, millions of them across the continent, they're an amazing trading power. They're really the ones that are vectors of our economy. So these are my role models.
You are a very discreet person, and but I know that you are involved in so many areas, from telecom, from media. Can you tell us more about what is your day-to-day business?
Well, businesses always have a start. I mean,
how did you start, by the way?
Yeah,
how did you start?
Businesses always have a start, and usually good businesses start small. So, you have to start small. You have to definitely have an idea. You have to be very determined, very persistent. You have to be able to identify the right opportunity. Sometimes it's not going to work, and you just have to keep at it. And if you live in a country like, I'm lucky to live in, a country like Angola, where our growth, economic growth, has been tremendous. We have had, for the last 10 years, growth above 10%. So we've had an economic boom. So many new people going into, from poverty to middle class, from middle class to wealth. So all of this, it's a good environment for somebody who wants to start a business.
You are building an amazing champion in telecom, Unitel. You even, I would say, push the boundaries. What role do you see for the telecom and the TICs, I would say, in the expansion of growth of the African infrastructure?
Well, I think a lot was said today about technology and infrastructure. How is that going to move Africa? How are things going to be changed? People discussed cell phones, but I think definitely telecom goes beyond mobile. Today we're talking a lot more about fiber, about how do we get connectivity with extremely high capacity from one city to another, because we need that high capacity. So I think we should think Africa beyond cell phone, and Africa fiber and big broadband capacity.
How do you see, for the past 2-3 years, the evolution of the African consumer?
There's been a big change in trends.
How would you define today's African consumer?
Well, definitely,
thanks to your involvement in banking and telecom, for example.
Definitely today, when you look all across the board, the consumer patterns have changed. Today, cities are the ones that contribute the most to the GDP. So that means that we have stopped being a rural consumer with basic needs, and we have now evolved to a more sophisticated city consumer. And this is true for Africa. When you look today, our demographics, a lot of people are living in urban areas, and they have the same needs and the same wants as anybody who lives in any city in the world.